is 6:39 on Monday, September 24th, and we're going to call the school committee meeting to order. First item on our agenda, as always, is our consent agenda. I think we only had the minutes from September in there. Did anybody get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Any motion to approve the minutes from September 10th?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments, edits, additions, deletions?
Yeah, I did have something.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was. Hang on. It was something about the, let's just keep moving. Can I bring it up in a minute as soon as I think about it?
Okay.
Do we need to vote on it right now?
Well, we can vote any time you want.
Okay,
It's
all right.
basically for the record.
Just give me a second and I'll come
Okay.
back. I need to pull it up.
We don't have any, right? Robin, do you have anything? Did you guys want to share anything? No? Okay. Michelle, nothing? Okay.
The only thing I wanted to bring up was if there's going to be childcare for the next meetings.
For the school committee meetings? Well, that's a good question. We never had childcare for school committee meetings. The challenge is that typically for childcare, we ask the National Honor Society or the volunteer groups because we have this every other week. It may be too much for students, especially given that we're pretty late. But that's something that we can keep in mind. You're asking because you think that folks are not able to come as they have kids that they need to watch?
The people I've asked, they were asking if there's going to be childcare or if GCAM was going to be here because they can't get here because of the kids.
Okay. GCAM is always here. Every single one of our meetings is filmed, is televised, also posted on YouTube, so they can just go and watch it at their leisure if that's what they would like to do. The reason why I'm kind of asking a little more is to have folks here, and especially for the first part, the visitors comment, if they have anything that they can share in person, it's always better for us.
Is
So
that something that you can share on the website?
that we don't have? Yes, we can.
Comments here for the school meeting?
That it's available elsewhere, and then they can come for the visitors' comments? Yes, of course, yeah.
I think, were you referring for childcare because tonight we're having the public comment? I think that was, like, maybe next year when we do our evaluation, we should plan for childcare.
That we can do. That probably we should do anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think she might have also been alluding to space on Facebook or a website someplace to be read or discussed with their name, maybe something like that.
And sometimes people will make the comments online
Yeah.
rather than face to face.
Yep.
I don't have that problem, but
So that's, you were saying something.
I just know that I did see your comment when you put it out on Facebook, that if you can't make it here to email you.
Yep.
But I think that that was also on the Granby Public Schools website, because that's a good center location where everybody can find a lot of information.
Okay.
And I didn't see it when I was doing it.
All right, so that's good feedback. We'll do something about it. As far as making a space available on Facebook or elsewhere for folks to drop notes, we've been thinking about it, and we have a community relations subcommittee that will be specifically talking about those. The school committee has a Facebook site. I don't receive anything. However, part of it is that I should be very honest about the fact that there is actually a filter. So to be able to make sure that we don't have 2 million things, and we at one point had a lot of spam, I put a filter that just, the moderator lets everybody go. And I have not been on Facebook for months. When I went back just yesterday for the first time, I realized that there were two messages. One was an appreciation for the teachers. The other one was a question that I had missed. So we have to do something a little better, but the Community Relations Subcommittee will be looking into those. And let's just think if we can find some other means for folks to be able to share their feedback with us online. The one thing, since you gave us the opportunity, I'll take it at least. I know that some of the issues related to the schools are discussed elsewhere on Facebook. As I said, I have not been on Facebook for months. Before, I was going and trying to monitor some of these correspondences. Now I can't. I mean, it's, we all have some busy times during our work and all that. So the best way to reach us really is to reach us via email. If that is not working, then we can try to find some other ways. Maybe the school site can have a school committee suggestions box or something like that, that folks can drop anything that they want. We can actually create an interface where they can drop things, and they can, if they want to, they can remain anonymous, or they can put their name if that's a concern. I don't know. But today, for instance, someone, and I will share it, someone sent me an email and said, I can't be there tonight, but here's what I observed and I would like to share with you, which was very much appreciated. So hopefully everybody can do that, but if they don't want to, we should be able to find some other means for them to reach us.
Now, Emery, will you tell people on camera how they can get your email?
Well, to get to our email, 1-800, no. If you go to the school website, I'll actually go as I'm saying it, Granby Schools. If I can spell Granby, I would be there. So if you go to GranbySchoolsMA.org, if you haven't been there, one of the top menu items will be School Committee. And the first item on that, as there is a drop down, will be School Committee. You click on that, you see our names. Each one of our names, if you click on the name, it will pop up an email message that you can send to us. So our email addresses actually are linked to our names. Whoever you would like to email, just click on the name and it will pop up an email for you, and you can send us anything you would like. Okay. All right, thanks, Michelle, for bringing that up. That gave us the opportunity to briefly discuss that. Were you able to find?
Yes,
Okay.
I was. It was the discussion regarding the class size enrollment, and it doesn't reference how we are going to gather some data, and you were going to come in with a draft. I just think that there needs to be some more detail in that section, just so that we have a timeline of what we did and how we went about it, and
Okay. Is there a specific addition that you would like to?
well, I think it just needs to reference the piece of the discussion about coming up with some ways to, some metrics in order to see whether or not class sizes on the larger scale or smaller scale work for us, and how we are going to go about figuring that out. And I'm sure you're going to speak more to it, because I saw that on, I think it's tonight's, right?
Well, yes.
So, but just setting up a chain of events
Really,
for
I
the
think it's the
timeline.
timeline for collecting data, the kind of data that we'll be collecting and looking at, and then when we'd be reporting.
Right. But nothing is mentioned in that,
Okay.
in that item there.
So we're not making any specific amendments, Deanne? You just want some details to be added?
Yeah, just some details to be added, or at least, a sentence or two.
So can we table this one, bring it back next week when it's amended? Because even when it's amended, it should be known what's included in there, then we vote it that way. So we'll postpone the vote to our next meeting. Jumping to new business.
So, one of my favorite, well, it's been a wonderful day. We've had our ribbon cutting, and now this evening we have our celebration of our teachers with professional status. So, I would like to call up Alyssa Mullen, who is also recently going, or soon to be married. So we have multiple congratulations today. So Alyssa has been with us for 3 years, worked providing services at West Street School, but also doing evaluations across the district, and not only with our students, but with any child in Granby. So Alyssa, congratulations. We are so happy for you. Teachers are so shy. So
Congratulations,
Emily's gonna
sorry.
come out and-
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're good.
I forgot my water.
And unfortunately, Leslie had a conflict that she was trying to work around, but Leslie Mahoney is our other recipient of professional status. These are her flowers. Alyssa, I mean, you want to take them, Liz?
Awfully briefly.
But as you remember, Leslie was our Teacher of the Year last year, the Pioneer Valley Teacher of the Year. So congratulations to Leslie, and we're very excited to really celebrate a professional journey that people go through. In the first 3 years, as you can probably attest, are quite a challenge. So congratulations on making it.
And congratulations on your other life-changing event as well.
13 years?
Thank you. All right, that's, oh no, we have a couple more items. Public comment on school committee evaluation. I'm guessing we don't have any.
I know, we had such a
Yeah.
wonderful turnout last year.
Yeah, last year we had a good turnout. That means we have to try some other ways, and that's fine. I mean, that's what happens. I don't know if you saw the email that I forwarded to you.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I'm very grateful for the email that one of our community members sent. That was related to how we are thinking about keeping the equipment outside, the toys and the equipment, away from the weather factors so they can last longer. I think it's a great thought, great topic to discuss. So I forwarded to our superintendent, and if you discuss it with Bill, and anything comes out of it, if you can let us know, that would be great.
I did discuss it with Bill, and found out that there is a shed being built currently,
Okay.
and that's actually being donated by the Carpenters Union, who
Cool.
worked on the school. So it's a gift to the school. We bought the material and supplies, and they donated their time and labor. So within the next couple of days, it should be complete and
Okay.
usable, and all of our equipment, should be inside and locked. And the playground equipment in the back, it's taken some time to get all of the landscaping done and all of the structures in place, but we are very hopeful that certainly by the springtime, it will be 100% complete.
Well,
Bryn-
Cheryl, I don't know if you're aware, in the back, where because I'm out for third and fourth grade, there is a very large bin, plastic bin, where the lid goes up and down, and I'm assuming it's weatherproof, because it's that kind of thing that I would put in my yard to store things in. And that is out there with basketballs, soccer balls, and some other things. So that, they're not just left strewn all over the place out there.
Okay. I mean, sometimes some things that we don't see, folks see, and that's the whole point of this, right? Just they give us.
I will tell you, it's not under lock and key if that's
Yeah.
what they're looking for.
I think the concern was that, hey, you guys have this wonderful, and it was a very complimentary email, at least the way I read it.
Absolutely.
You guys have this wonderful new building, and we're really happy to see that. But also, we noticed that some of the, playground
Special
toys were left out. Is there a way to keep them away from the elements so that they last longer? And I think it's all good suggestion, good comments. Cool. Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
I'll respond to that email and let them know in case they're not watching. There is,
I have a question.
Yes.
Did we do anything differently this year as far as getting the word out about our evaluation process tonight?
I think we did a little more than last year too.
More, which is kind of,
Okay.
yeah, surprising. It was on Twitter, it was on Feedbook, webpage, Facebook, and the All Call, last week.
Was it at a different time of year last year?
It might have been just a little bit later,
It was a little later maybe.
yeah,
Not much, though.
but no, it was
Much.
around, it was the fall.
Yeah, it was
Certainly.
certainly fall. We wanted to do
Yeah.
it at the beginning of the year.
So here's the thing, I guess,
The
from
very
my,
positive side of me says everything's going great,
yeah,
but we can always use feedback, so.
yeah, great is good, but, so let me ask everyone this. What the evaluation is expected to drive is our goals so that we can start working on those. But other than that, if there's an expectation that community input is important to us, we can, next week we have another meeting, we can try it one more time and see if we can have more folks in this.
Can I make a suggestion? Your all call is great, but I'm gonna toot the horn for Bill Latoy. He does them the day of or the day before,
Mm-hmm,
not the week before.
right. Yeah, I could have
Page out of his
done
book.
both. The other thing that was very helpful during budget season to have the discussions about budget was to go to the organization, so to go to the PTO and maybe get on the agendas and solicit direct feedback by having, say, 10 or 15 minutes and asking for people, to give feedback so that then we
Yeah.
could, that's a little bit more time consuming, obviously. But that was very helpful. I learned a lot going to those meetings.
That's absolutely true, and that's a great suggestion. But in the meantime, for next week, and I will ask multiple questions all at once. One is whether or not there's an opportunity to connect with the PTO. Maybe we can have more folks through you guys. And then can do we think that there's an opportunity to have some babysitting that we can publicize that too? Maybe that's one.
Certainly, we actually just sent out an email last week for trying to get babysitters for PTO meetings.
Yeah.
So we might be able, if we get an influx of babysitters, we could share the wealth.
Okay.
Well, my husband was the babysitter last week.
And a fine job he did.
Because we were hoping that the honor students, they would need community time and that they would donate their time to us and it would serve them and us at the same time. So that's what we were hoping, but I guess we weren't able to connect with anybody.
I got the email, I think after the meeting.
Okay.
For future meetings, so I don't know who hired to, but we reached out to National Honor Society, student government, class officers, looking for anybody who's interested, so.
So with that, to the committee members, should we postpone this to next week and see if we have better luck?
I think we should postpone it.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
So am I hearing then that Connect Ed would be better
Closer to the-
Friday, Thursday or Friday, and then a reminder on Monday?
Yeah, I'll update the Facebook
Yep.
post as well.
And what is your Facebook page? What does it have? Is it Granby School Committee?
Granby School Committee.
Is it Emery's page? Is it
No.
Emery's
Um,
updates? What is it?
See, because I have not been there in a long time, let me just make sure that I remember the exact name. So it is Granby MA School Committee. That's us.
Okay.
It might make sense too in the all-call if we are able to secure
I don't know,
babysitters
how do you
to
see
mention
how
that as
many
well.
people we have on this page?
How old do the babysitters have to be?
I'm sorry.
Oh, 118.
Do we have a rule as to how old the babysitters have to be?
Yeah, Emery, is that all, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how, is that all spelled out, Granby?
Granby, MA School Committee. It's a public group. Currently, we seem to have 118 members, which is
I'll
pretty,
sign up.
pretty,
We'll go to 119
Good.
tonight.
All right, there we go. Growing every day. That's our motto.
Come grow with us.
Okay.
So my thought would be probably to try it for the 15th instead of next week. This will give a little bit more time to people to make up their mind.
Look, we don't have, do we have a meeting on the 15th?
I just
All right.
checked. It was the first and 15th.
Because,
All right.
Because
so-
Columbus Day messed up our
Right.
regular
Yes.
plan.
Okay, so,
That's just my thought.
yeah, that's it. You
well, the
know?
other is, thank you for reminding me, I don't think that we're gonna have a conflict, but we may have a conflict with the joint select board meeting on the 1st.
Okay.
I don't believe
So,
we're
the
gonna have to
15th.
be here, but in the case that we would have to be here.
Okay. So the 15th would give us, what, 3 weeks? Do we want to do that?
I just thought that would give the PTO and other groups time to help cascade the word out.
We'll meet on the 1st.
Well, I know you don't want to
And
upset
I'll
Michelle, so, you know,
have
they
the
just,
Public comment.
No, we are willing to help.
But it does take them time to
Yeah,
hold things
yeah.
up.
all right, so we'll do it on the 15th.
But we can express.
Can we put a slide up on the GCAN channel?
Yeah, sure.
Guess what? Out in front of this school, there is a
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
See, this is what we did not do last time, all these creative ideas, so. All right, so we'll post it on GCam, we'll post it on Facebook. It's possible that because I'm not sure how often the school website content is changing, when it doesn't change for a while, folks who are used to going to a site, they just stop
Yep.
going. So maybe they're not seeing it for that reason.
Right.
You know, if we can find that feature, whatever feature it is, I thought it was always easy because even I figured it in old days when I was building simple websites to get the Twitter feed right on the side so that, you know, folks who don't have access to Twitter can't even read what's going on. So, like Deanne. That's what you said, right? So, all right.
Yep.
So we're gonna postpone our public comment on committee evaluation to October 15th, and we're gonna coordinate with the PTO, and we're gonna use all channels available to us to make sure that we have public participation. The last item under new business requires our vote. It's on acceptance of Life Touch donation. Did everybody get a chance to read it, by the way, in the folder? Okay. Cheryl, did you want to give a quick synopsis of that?
I'm not really sure what it is.
So, every year, when Life Touch comes in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, I go back to my principal days, there is, based on the ordering, there is a gift that is presented to the school, to the building principal, as a result of having the photographer in the school. And the amounts vary, but it is of an amount that the school committee would have to approve. So it happens both at the elementary schools and at the high school.
So this one is a little different.
Oh, boy.
Cheryl's right, we do get that check annually, but so, prior to me being principal, they signed there was a contract signed, and as part of the contract, it was like a $1,500 gift for signing the contract. And they talked about they could, you know, purchase something, $1,500 of value, or, it could have been a check. So when I saw the contract last year, I inquired about that $1,500, and after doing some exploration, we found out that we never used it. So
Okay.
I contacted Tim Rosa, who's our representative from Life Touch. He was able to confirm that it hadn't been used, and he offered me up some options as to how we could use it. And we have a new video production class, and we're looking to purchase some iPad minis specifically. And with Adam said the best way to procure it is by having them give us the check. So we're actually the one purchasing it.
Cool.
So they brought the check in last week, and we already have the iPad minis on order for the new class.
That's awesome.
So
All right.
hopefully we accept.
Pending this?
Yeah.
So hopefully we accept it.
Let's bring some suspense to this vote then.
Does the 1,500 so does that cover the cost of the iPad minis that are on order?
I think I have to pay $16.
I'm just curious.
116 something.
Nice.
change. So, yeah, we made sure we used every penny.
That's awesome.
So let's just vote on this, and I'm gonna have a question on this one. Is there a motion to approve the Life Touch donation of $1,500?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussions, questions? Okay, all in favor to approve the donation, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So the media class that you mentioned, are we working with GCAM for that?
Yes,
Awesome.
we are.
All right,
My daughter's taking it, she loves it.
yes.
Trish has been in quite a bit. We actually scheduled the class around the time that was convenient for her, so she could be there when available.
Okay,
And GCAM's been very generous in donating equipment and letting students use equipment, but we want to start to purchase some of our own too, so we have a little bit more leeway in how it's used. Because students are sometimes signing out on their own and filming sporting events and principals lists they've talked about and things like that.
Yeah.
So we want to have some flexibility.
cool, and thank you for that. And I wanna mention and give credit to Tricia, because she's been after this for years now. And each time we have GCAM meetings, I would say, just go try again, just, it will happen, and just, the year ends, and so thank you for that collaboration, but thank you, Tricia, for being so persistent and bringing this class, because I really think that this is an important class. Technology and media and all that stuff coming together, and I think a lot of students have great interest and great talent that they can use in these classes that we can do other things with as well with their help. So
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
We anticipate the class will grow as the students become more comfortable, because it's their ideas already that are driving it, so.
Thank you, Stephen. One thank you, and I know that we've been receiving our agenda items this way. But as I read this one, as I was going through the items, I said, oh, you know what? If we all read it this way, on this one I don't even have any questions, because the way he put it was pretty clear that this is what's happening, this is, where the money's from, this is the reason why you're voting for it, and done. So please say thank you to Adam as well. I really appreciate the way we are using this communication method. With that, going to old business. Data collection for class size. So just to refresh our minds.
Sure. Based on the discussion of class size at the elementary school and the need for the 6th grade teacher, there was discussion from the school committee and directive to organize some research into some measurable outcomes, metrics for class sizes. So with that being said, we meet tomorrow as a leadership team. Last time we were meeting as safety and management, so this didn't come on the agenda, but it will come on the agenda tomorrow. So I'm hoping that we would have really the entire shell of what we're talking about. The leadership team knows that we're talking about it, but basically, as we said, we need the timeline, the metrics, but also how we're going to collect the data. So we've already been talking about some of our district assessments, MCAS outcomes, the student growth percentiles, but also I think including some qualitative data from students and staff. And that gets just a little bit trickier to get, but also then to analyze. So, and again, because it's the first time, maybe doing this again so that we have some comparables as kids move through the system. So it will definitely be on the 1st, is what I'm saying. So we will
Okay.
have
All right, good.
the whole thing.
All right, we'll table this till next week, and then we'll talk about it then. New agenda format.
So I looked at agendas throughout the Commonwealth, and I didn't find it. What I was looking for were examples of agendas that had this organization, but then had the link to strategic plans, because most of the districts in the Commonwealth have strategic plans that they're working with. I did not find an agenda that aligned the agenda items to the strategic plan goals. So we have to create our own if we still want to do that, and I'd be happy to do that. There were some examples of agendas that come in the form of more charts or tables, and so then you could list what the strategic objective was that was aligned to that agenda item. But I couldn't find any examples. Like I did find for you the school committee orientation and handbooks. There were many, and so I was able to put quite a few in for you, but the agenda format, I think we're gonna need to come up with our own.
And that would be fine. You know,
Okay.
it's, since we brought it up, we should be able to at least articulate what we are looking for and then create our own
So
format.
would you like me to
right?
draft one for the first?
That would be great. With that, since we are asking for a format for the school committee, at least personally, I feel like you should not have the sole responsibility to put that together. So I don't know how we can collaborate. If you want, you and I can collaborate
Yeah.
and then bring it to the school committee next week.
Well, if I could ask the committee, are you satisfied with the flow of the current agenda? This is I think this is an MASC template. There are a few others, but they all pretty much have the same items.
Yeah.
So I didn't have an issue with the flow, but I think it helped me when I was looking at the material to understand what we were trying to do with the pieces of information. So maybe a little side note next to each, if there was like just like a little note linking it to the strategic plan, that way there I can determine, because some of the stuff is just gonna be business that we have to do. It might not link to the strategic plan like in any real way.
Right. It'd be a stretch.
Right, but then there's other things that come up that I'd wanna really be able to focus in on, like where it fits in the plan.
I agree with Mike. Simple is better, first of all, and for me anyway. And looking at going back to the Life Touch overview, at the bottom with the strategic plan initiative, I appreciate that.
Yep.
And, like Mike said, maybe just something as simple as next to the new business or old business or whatever it is, linking it to whatever goal it is or initiative.
Well, with that, I mean, what if we numbered, so we've got, I'm looking on your computer, but so we've got four strategic plan initiatives, and seem to be in the same order, because it's a form now. So if we numbered them 1 through 4 on there, you could put in parentheses next to whatever it is, 1, and then we would know that it's, whatever that says, innovative and continuous learning experiences. So then there's a correlation. So if we have a key somewhere at the end of the agenda that says what the initiative is and what the number is as it correlates, then if you just put in parentheses next to it, then there's that link that's established for us. Because I do like Deanne said on that form, how it relates. And I think maybe it's just, there would be a key for everyone, because anyone could see the agenda and then see the key, and then it's not as difficult, there's already a lot of information on there, so.
Yeah.
It's simplified as much as possible.
Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think the idea was that we only meet twice a month, and our primary purpose as a committee is to push things that are related to our strategy, right? So we wanted to understand whether or not we are really focusing our time on things that are aligned with our strategic plan. And I really don't think everything will.
Right.
There will be some things that will not align with that, and that's fine as well. But we're just trying to understand which one of those items are aligning and whether or not we are really discussing things that are helping us better understand where we're going. So I agree with everything that everybody said, absolutely. From keeping it simple to using whatever's already available. It doesn't have to be a complicated format, really, for us to be able to capture that.
I do like the idea of a key,
Mhm.
like Jen said, somewhere. I mean, we have a lot on the back already, but it's useful, just with the vision and the mission statement.
Well, we have the goals in the back, so,
Yeah, right.
you know, the
That's
key
true.
would
That is the
be,
key.
yeah.
That's right there. They're all right there.
Right,
Yeah.
Oh, one,
right.
2, 3, 4. So we
Right.
just G1, G2, G3, G4, and after whatever item on the agenda, however it correlates. And so we've got the key, and just we put in parentheses after that, key for, you know, however it reads, then it's
Yeah.
even simpler, right? It's not, we're not recreating the wheel, we're just using the information that's there and presenting it slightly differently.
And it's also a good gauge that if we don't see a lot of
Right.
Gs there,
And are we missing?
and the balance is
Yeah.
off, then we know that we
and
need
are
to
missing Things
reevaluate.
that should be on the
Right,
agenda.
right.
We're not talking about some things. that
Are we
would help
reaching
us.
all 4 goals?
Right.
You know, are we continually,
Yeah, because we can go back and look and be like, oh gosh, we never had one thing that we discussed about
Right.
goal number 1.
But then on the flip side, if we try to put everything into a goal, then we're gonna skew those types of results and say, looks like we're working every day, every minute, trying to meet these goals, but if we do this properly and only put the things that matter to these goals with a goal, then after a year or so, we can go back and say, well, we spent this much time on stuff that really wasn't aligning to our goals versus this much time that was, right?
Right.
Then maybe we can figure out
Yeah,
how
that's a
to,
good
how to
point.
get to a happier spot with that.
regardless of what we're doing or how we're doing it, it's gonna be continually in our lens, right? So that's the good news.
And it's not going to be, just like anything else, it's not going to be perfect, and we can find better ways of doing it as we try it and test it. We'll find some other way. And I really like that we are now having these conversations because eventually we're going to get to this framework that anybody after us can use as well. And they can make improvements too, just doesn't have to be perfect the first shot. Cool. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. School committee goals, I guess we're gonna, the one thing that we can do, or, you know, I can try to do by our meeting on the 15th, is to do an inventory of goals that other school districts have. Because at the end of the day, many school districts are aiming similar objectives. Their strategic goals are similar to each other. If that's the case, I'm just making this assumption. If that assumption is true, at least partially, I can imagine that we can find some goals that may resonate with us, and we can start with those, then tailor it to our needs or how we would like to express our own goals. If it works for everyone, I can do that for the 15th. I mean, and send it before,
Right.
because if I don't, some committee members may not like it. So I will.
Thursday,
Oh
by the
man, just
Thursday
you know,
before.
I threw it your way and you were not listening. So
No, well,
Oh, okay.
because
No, I
I'm
will-
still a little loyal to these 4 goals, and
These haven't been updated.
yes.
Right.
And
So
they haven't all
Yeah.
been met either,
So-
so I'm just,
so
That's
that's
where
actually
the pause was
that's a
coming
very
from.
good point. That's a very good point because as I was already doing some research and reading through some other strategic plans this past weekend, when school committees say it is their goal, they are referring to the goals in the strategic plan. And we already have those goals. What I thought we were trying to do, aside from that, for the way we operate
Yes.
as a committee, we wanted to establish a few goals for this committee. Not changing the goals that we have, that's a great point, not changing the goals that we have in our strategic plan, that we just came up with those. So if that is too much, that creates confusion and we're, you know, creating goals that may not necessarily be necessary, then we don't even have to do the work.
Well, I think I personally think we should, because I think these 4 strategic goals are just long-term strategic goals.
Yes.
To be honest with you, I don't think we'll ever be completed with them as I read them. There's just always looks like there's gonna be ways to improve on those 4 goals.
Yeah.
But then we should also be looking at, what do we wanna try to accomplish in the next 6 months or a year? You know, more short-term school committee type goals to get us through the
Yep.
school year.
So my thought was, we did the self-evaluation, we already identified our own gaps, and then when we have the public here and they tell us, you know, what else we can do as a committee, that the gaps that we come up with should drive what goals we're gonna be pursuing for the next year or 2 years, whatever it is. We can determine the duration of that.
And I think to Mike's point, the goals for the school committee really are obtainable within almost a year.
Right,
And it's typically process things, and it's like things that we would work on at a workshop, set as a workshop as our year, and then kind of reevaluate as we move forward. I'm trying to find last year's, because they were really good examples. So the draft last year, just make sure I have the right one. For September 29th.
I also think that our
So,
goals
you know,
should
very
feed
simply,
into
the
these.
school committee will complete the policy review to ensure compliance with
Yes.
state and federal regulations. School committee will develop a handbook that communicates the procedures, protocols of the committee, as well as the role of committee members and the onboarding of new members. The school committee will clearly document and publish the budget and budget process as it relates to the strategic plan, and the school committee will develop and implement community relations plan to ensure the good work of Granby School District, schools is known throughout the community. I think this is all in the background of why you're doing what you're doing right now. This has really driven some of your decisions about, we need a community relations plan, we need the budget subcommittee, we need to have the policy finished, so.
right.
I mean, nothing that we're doing says that we have to change those.
I was
Well,
just-
because we certainly haven't met them.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
as a new person, I would say that, to me, those seem like it's still the driving factor of what we got. I don't know, to me, it almost seems like we would be adding more onto the plate when we still have plenty to do.
Right.
You know, that it's not like all of those are finished. We're still working on the policy, the community relations thing is, you know, we voted on it, but there's really been much other than that, right? So there's lots of work to do, so why would we spend more time thinking of with more things that we're gonna do? Let's focus on what we've got and try to finish those.
I think that is a really good example of, we got derailed, over this last year. So we need to sort of refocus.
Yeah, so Cheryl, can you send that to us, that document? So, and maybe next meeting even, we can look at those, because I completely agree with Jen that if they're not complete, and we have enough to work on. And
think
those
I
are,
can
those are
actually-
still valid and good.
And they all,
Right in your folder.
and they all are still, aligned with the
There goes,
strategic goals, right? So
Right.
we're accomplishing what we need to, by focusing on these goals, we're gonna be accomplishing what we need to, rather than going off in another, more directions.
We actually lost sight of those goals, and here we are, we're talking about more goals when,
So just my little comment, as I was reading through those examples you gave of those handbooks of the new members, one of the things that I was thinking was, we need to sort out a lot of stuff internally before we can put something like that together. Because
Yeah.
we're not as organized amongst ourselves to put something like that together as I think we should be. That was just my observation when I was reading through that.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
They had very good specific examples of how we would get things onto agendas which weren't the same. So we'd have to come into agreement on how we would want that to happen. There's just a lot of things I think we should agree on before we try to put something in a handbook. Like, I think we all have in the back of our minds the way it should be, but we should all get that on the table and make sure we all understand it the same way. I think is where I was going.
No, I agree with that. Okay, so, good.
it feels like we accomplished something. So did we just decide that we have our goals?
Well, let's just review and see if they're all still valid, they're all valid, then we
So we'll
continue
put it
working
on
on
the agenda
this.
for the first.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I put it in the folder.
the question is going to be with public
Right.
comments, you know, will we add something, will we tweak something, will we change something?
That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah.
I think we should still have the public
Yes,
forum.
exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Well, what we expect to hear at the meeting is not necessarily for the goals anyway, it's just.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, that was good.
The roof.
The roof project.
Okay, so, the roof. Let me preface this by saying, what I'd like to talk about are some issues, actually Stephen's here so he can talk about them. Issues that we've seen that concern us moving into winter and winter sports season, and really how to move forward with the allocation that was made on town meeting floor. So Stephen, I don't know if you would like to just speak to some of what we saw. Mind you, it was a significant rain, it was Florence that came up, that really inundated us, but
I think we've had more rain probably in the past couple of weeks, and, you know, we continue to find issues presenting themselves, so I think everyone knows at this point. Last year we had to cancel a few sporting events, in the gym, and, postpone practices, move practices around, gym classes. It was even a comment made in one of the speeches last year at graduation about how they're playing dodgeball, but they're also dodging buckets that are on the gym floor. And literally at this point, like when it begins raining, it's raining in the gym, like almost like instantaneously. It used to take a while for the rain to find a way to come down, but
Yeah.
last week, for example, it had stopped raining for a bit, and the water slowly stopped, and then it picked up again, and within, I would say, no more than 10 minutes, it was, and we have more buckets out than we have even last year. And there's also classrooms and hallways that, like, Cheryl and I were doing a walkthrough the other day, and it wasn't, but it almost looked like one of the ceiling tiles was bowing because there was so much water, but it wasn't because there was so much water, it was just warped from how much water it's absorbed. We were in a classroom where it's dripping on like this tin thing in the classroom. So, and then so we worry about not just the gym space, but the classroom space, you know, and the
Yeah.
humidity that we've had, like, is it really drying out as
Yeah.
it should? So.
Mold concerns.
So whose responsibilities, I tried looking this stuff up and it was really vague, the stuff I could find, like, is this our responsibility to move this forward, or is it the town's?
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So, last week Cheryl and I had this conversation when she shared that the roof was having its problems. Thank you for sharing all that, but we already established that the roof is not good anymore. And that's why the town voted to replace the roof. So I think the issue now is the timing of the project.
Yeah.
When are we gonna start it? When can we start it? And how can we do anything stopgap if we need to, if the project cannot start immediately? So I asked Cheryl a similar question. When can we go to the town, or what other ways we need to communicate to, one, understand who will initiate it, two, whether there will be a separate committee, roof committee type of thing to oversee that project, because it's a, large project in terms of the amount of money that will be spent on it, or whatever comes out of it. We don't even know the final cost of it because we don't have those official
Is it even gonna be enough?
RFPs. Pardon me?
Is it even gonna be enough money? If it's getting that bad, I mean, I could see 1.4.
Well, that was for the
just
whole
on
roof, as far as I understand,
Just
so
the gym.
it should be. Oh, no, it wasn't, we did not,
That included
yeah, the roof project includes everything, including the gym, but gym is where it shows most of the symptoms. So either we will have to go, and I think you asked me to wait because you were going to reach out and ask all these questions. If not, we're gonna make time with the select board and Chris and go and ask all these questions and try to expedite this and start the project as soon as possible. I had this naive understanding, and probably it was one naive, two mistaken, that we were going to start it at the beginning of summer. Once the school ended, we were going to start some project. But also it became clear to me that in the absence of official RFPs, it wasn't going to happen anyway, and I did not really get an idea as to what the timing looked like. So now it's an opportunity for us to go and understand, document, whatever it is. But the committee has to be appointed by the select board. It's not our committee. The roof committee is an independently appointed committee, if there will be one, depending on the size of the project. It will be appointed by the select board. So we have to impress upon them that we are dependent on their action as well. I know there were a lot of things going on, and their meetings, including our conversation around the budget adjustment, was postponed a couple of times. But now with the urgency around the weather and, there will be snow after rain and all that, so we have to start quickly doing something about the project.
I just wanted to make sure too, because it was my impression that it was gonna be done by the select board, just based on the way it all came about for us. But at the same time, it's our building, right? I just
Right.
wanted to make sure that they weren't waiting on us to do something.
We work out the timing with them, and everybody, Cheryl and Stephen will be involved in that effort as well. But the last time we had roof projects, at least one of them I remember, which was here at the East Meadow School, when we did it, there was an East Meadow roof committee.
I just know that in 3 to 6 months, which I know the project won't be finished in 3 to 6 months, we're gonna start having some serious issues again, right? So-
Right.
And probably worse if it's raining that much quicker. And my concern, honestly, as with a kid in the school, is did that quote or did that price include any remediation? I mean, we've had an incredibly humid summer, incredibly humid start to the school year, lots of rain. I'm concerned about mold, and I worked in a building with black mold, and it cost $68,000 for a 900 square foot building for mold. And we've got for the building materials and ventilation on top, but we don't know what the mold situation is, and that's scary as hell to me. We're talking about peanut allergies and all sorts of other allergies. Mold allergy is a big deal. It's a big deal, and that to me is like, we can't wait until snow flies to figure this out. Something needs to be done before kids start getting sick. I mean, my daughter's been back at school for, 3 weeks? And she comes home snuffly every day, and I never put it together until this very minute. It kind of ticks me off. Like, we can't let our kids get sick because the building's falling apart. It's got to stop. Like, this is a big deal, and I'm angry.
Yes. With that, and I appreciate that you're angry, and you should be, I don't want to give any impression to anyone that there is
I know,
there's anything going
I'm not
on
saying that,
in the
I mean, we need to
schools.
figure that out, and when they get into that building and they open it up and they find that there's a remediation cost that's associated with that, and you've gotta make sure that we've got the money for it. We can't just slap a new roof on it and call it good without knowing what's in there.
So that's a good thought, but we don't know what's there anyway. That's part of the project. So I'm not sure that the project is about really slapping a roof there. That wouldn't be a project. Somebody has to come and see what's going to be needed. That's going to determine the final cost of the project, and they're going to do that. It's a matter of really starting it. It's not really
I think,
the investigation
Some
part.
of the questions that I had for sure last week when I inquired about where we were on the project, because I just hadn't heard anything since June or anything, so I inquired, and I just wasn't sure if there was already a company that was identified. Is there something that they could do to get us through the wind? I just didn't know what our options were.
When we talked about last time, we hadn't even gone out to quote, right?
So, well, we actually had the initial quotes, and that's where I think all got confused. I had the impression that based on those, but the size of the project is such that you can't.
correct, it would have to be much more in-depth.
Right.
Can we just back up for a second? What's been done so far? Have any phone calls been made, or?
So when the town meeting approved the roof at town meeting floor, I sent an email requesting information, because if the project was going to be done over the summer, we needed to know, because East Meadow was off limits to us and West Street was going to be closing, and we needed to house our integrated preschool. And so we provided, through John Sullivan, some more information regarding the ventilation and the number of units and all of that, and that's really where it stalled. And so now, in that email, I asked for a timeline of how this project was going to be implemented, and that's really where we're at. And I think, it's come to the forefront again because of the leak intensity and the shortness between the rain and the actual leaking getting onto the gym floors and into the classrooms.
Is the select board and Chris aware of the most recent situation with the last rainstorm?
No, they are not.
Okay,
And so we had the conversation with Emery, and now here, because Mike brought it forward as an agenda item to say, okay, our next step, I'm going to assume, would be to reach out to Chris to see if, my guess would be a joint meeting, maybe of representatives of each of the boards, to get the project moving.
Is there any way that we can fast track this? Does it have to be done in that way? Can we do it, through phone calls, through?
I think what we need to do, that's a good thought, but as I always say, for these things, we need to try to have that face-to-face. That's the better way of really understanding what the obstacles are, if there are any, what the next steps are, so that we can move this forward. And if you need me to be involved in it, as I said last week, I can arrange my schedule to be in town so we can go and have the conversation. Obviously, it was summer months, and we did not understand really what was happening, what was not happening. But the answer to your question is nothing has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So we're basically where we are at the same position that we're in at the end of the town meeting. There is allocated amount, but nothing has been done. Right? Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yep.
So we have to really do something to move that forward.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused as to where or why there would be any obstacles, considering that the residents have voted and the money has been allocated. So to me, it seems like it's, okay, what do we do first?
Right.
And is there some background steps that we can start taking ahead of, well, we're not going to be able to meet for another 3 weeks, and then we're going to get on somebody's agenda, and then this one's not there, and is there some background?
Not to mention another 2 inches of rain tomorrow.
Well, the reason I asked for it too, I had suspected that, I didn't know you were gonna be here to talk about that, and I hadn't heard anything, and I suspected that we were continuing to have these problems, and you just filled us in that, yes, they're actually getting worse, and that was kind of my assumption, but I wanted to make sure that they weren't waiting for us to do something, because if they were, it's like, well, let's figure it out, let's do it, and let's keep this thing moving.
That's why I'm saying, at this point, I think at least some of the initial steps can be taken with phone calls and emails. Are you expecting us to do something? What's our first step here? What do we need to do?
Well, the email was done. An email is not really getting us anywhere. That's what I'm saying. We can exchange nice messages all we want, but we have to really get this going. So we have to understand what we need.
I guess that's the part I'm confused about. What do you mean by the nice messages? Isn't it as simple as the roof's leaking,
Well,
the money's been allocated,
that's what
what do we
just
need to
Cheryl
do?
said. She sent that email. She sent it. She asked for the timeline. She asked what we need to do. She did that. So
And
I
did we
think
get a
it's more-
timeline,
I think it's
or?
more about organizing together the timeline. I think it's more about meeting together and deciding how to move the project forward and getting the timeline and the benchmarks down on paper, because that never happened. Although that was a request for how is this process going to work, I need to know, because we have kids in the building this summer, and I think I need help from the committee to sit down with the select board and the town administrator to put down on paper how this is going to go.
Can I ask a worst case scenario question? We're supposed to get another bunch of rain if tiles start falling down in the building, or there's, you know, stuff falls down in the gym, it doesn't feel to me like that is that far away from happening. What is the plan? What do we do? I mean, we can't just close the high school because it's leaking. We gotta put the kids to school. Like what?
So in
What
general,
happens?
what happens in a crisis situation is you look to off-site the students. So we would be looking at an alternate site, and we would canvass typically local school districts that may have recently closed a school. Palmer is a good example. They've recently closed their middle school, not for any reason other than they don't have the enrollment. We would look at other building alternatives to temporarily move students to until we could deal with the crisis. And that really goes for anything. You have a fire, you have a leaky
Right.
roof, you have, whatever. That's what we would look to do.
Let's hope we don't get a big October snowstorm event.
So we will reach out, but I need your input as to whether you want me to be involved in that. That I will schedule to be there, and I would prefer to go and have that meeting in person, whether it's one person from the select board or Chris or someone. We have to really push that. So, I'll look to you to
So
let me know.
Adam has been away at the convention for school business managers, so he will be back, I believe, on Wednesday. My understanding is that he has been reaching out to schedule time with Chris to go over some 17 and 18 school year closing things, and I'll add that to the agenda. So if we're able to get that on the agenda, I'll let you know.
When is that?
He's not back until Wednesday.
When is the next select board meeting?
Tomorrow.
So we won't be able to get on the agenda for that, but do we?
And then there's the first that we're actually scheduled on.
Can we add this as an agenda item for that meeting?
Today is what? Monday?
24th.
And they're due on, yes, we would have time.
Can we at least start there and add an agenda item and
I'm with you.
that's all I'm saying is, when's the next meeting? Can we start taking some steps initially that are gonna start, moving the needle forward a little bit while we're waiting for this and waiting for that?
So there are RFPs that have gone out. We have an official quote. So we're like less than started with, except that someone came up with this number of 1.4 that we voted on, and it cleared out whatever the extra money was. So we don't even know really, because we don't have an actual quote, right? So we don't even know.
We have quotes. We don't have an official RFP that has to go through the normal bidding process for a project this size.
Okay.
And so that, I also hear that you have some concern about the money not being sufficient. We had a few quotes. I don't know how many we had, 3 or 2, whatever that was. We actually had full quotes that were full quotes for the whole thing for less than $1 million. When you put the whole thing together, it was 600 something for the roof, and the rest of it was for the ventilation and whatever else was part of it. So we don't know whether or not we'll go to that extreme. It may, but the idea was that was going to be the sufficient amount regardless of what the circumstances are. And I don't think the problem right now is the funding. It's just that we have to really get going on this project.
And really, it came from Stephen because the question really was if we could move the process along, have the RFP get a company, could that company help us mediate over the winter so that we may be not in a position that we were this year of having to cancel? Is there something, if we had a company on board, that they could come in and help us, sort of
Get
patch
ready.
and repair to get us through till the project was started and complete?
Well, it seems like a good place to start is to go to the select board meeting and have a discussion there. And it seems to me is we should be able to walk out of that meeting with some sort of a timeline and who's doing what.
Good? All right.
I'm sorry, Kathy, can you make sure that we call tomorrow over to, thank you.
When we say the select board meeting, we're talking about which meeting?
That would be the first, and we're
Okay.
not doing the public comment, so we can meet there first and then adjourn to back this way.
Okay. So remember that the budget-related segment that we're invited to is 7:15. So we meet at 6:30 here, go there for 7:15, then meet for a while, then come back here. It's not gonna really leave any meaningful amount of time for us to do business.
Unless we can ask them to be earlier on the agenda. We can see.
And it seems like this is a priority. You know, we need to make this a priority. What else do we have, do we have other items for the first?
While the
On our own
the normal
agenda.
normal
Data
reason, the initial reason why we were gonna go there is to approve the updated budget,
Right.
state budget.
So for our items, we would be carrying forward the discussion of the data collection. We'd have the new agenda format.
Oh, you mean
We
our
wanna talk
meeting?
to-
Yeah.
Okay,
We wanna talk about
yeah.
school committee goals. There will be a large discussion, I believe, about the budget. Adam will be back, and wanna talk about that. We also would be moving forward the closing of student activity accounts and the AED donation. And the onboarding materials really is part of, what I had, in the folder for school committee handbooks and orientation materials.
I don't know, it seems to me like we're gonna have to prioritize, and to me, this feels
yeah.
like a priority.
This is like super important.
So, you know, if we have to move some things around, or if we just accept the fact that we're gonna have a long meeting on the first, you know, I don't know what you all think, but I don't think this can wait anymore. It's.
I agree.
Okay. So we'll try to get on the agenda related to this. We may be able to do something before that. If we do, then there is no need to really go to the select board meeting. Let's see what we can do. The phone call was related to this, correct? And then we'll see if we can get the information that we need that way. And if there is any way, again, from my perspective, to have face-to-face, that's even better. That's, you know, that way, you know, everything can be discussed at once and done.
And if I understand from what somebody said earlier, the select board would have to vote on this anyway? They would have to have some sort of a vote?
So because of the size of the project, it has to be overseen. And typically for larger projects, roof project over anything else, there were appointed committees for those purposes. And the select board has a sole authority to appoint committees outside ours. We have our subcommittees, but if there will be any committee for any business in town, select board appoints those committees.
So ideally, if we could have this face-to-face prior to October 1st and have those details worked out and have the select board vote on it on the 1st, that would put us in a better position than we are today.
Right. To be able to appoint a committee, you have to have the members of that committee. I don't know if there is enough time to be able to do that, but we can ask. Anything else on this? We don't have anything on the 1819, correct? Okay. So Adam is at the, what is it, American School Business Officers meeting, so. So we have the approval of McDuffie and Children First.
Right, so those invitations
upcoming.
went out. Kathy sent them out last week. Yep. So as soon as they respond, we'll have them on the agenda.
Okay.
Adam will be back for the votes on the closing of student activities accounts and the AED donation. And D is induction mentoring. So Stephen is here to talk about work that the district has been doing in revising and really developing our induction and mentoring program here in the Granby Public Schools. It wasn't really that we weren't doing induction and mentoring, it just was that we didn't really have the formal process and the manual and sort of a guidebook for folks, so that they understood, everyone understood, whether you were a mentor or a new teacher, what the objectives are of mentoring, what the requirements are regarding mentoring. So without further tapping on Stephen's toes, I'll let him talk about the work that we're doing and what we're very excited about.
Yeah, so I think, like Cheryl said, we're really just formalizing some of the mentor induction work that's been happening. Maybe in some places a little bit more informally, but you know, I think one thing that I realized last year is one of our strengths is that a lot of our teachers start here and stay here, which is a great thing. So I don't know that induction and mentoring has been like a major priority because the people have been here. But we anticipate this year we have at the junior senior high school, we have 2 new teachers. And quite honestly, some of our veteran teachers we're going to be turning over in the next 5-10 years. So we want to try to be ahead of that. So as new teachers are coming on, that we have a process that they can follow through. So not just around instruction, but around operations and management and how things happen in a typical day here at East Meadow or in a typical day at the junior senior high school. It goes everything from the grade book to teacher evaluation to working around our instructional focus developed by the instructional leadership team. And the way that we're presenting this is it's not just about the one mentor, so every new teacher in year 1 will be assigned a mentor teacher typically from whatever school that they're working at, but there's potential that you could have a junior high school teacher mentor a teacher here at East Meadow. It's possible. But also working with the instructional leadership team. So the mentor will carry a lot of the day-to-day operation management, content type work, but instructional leadership team will take some of the bigger picture work and support them, making sure that they understand our instructional goals and expectations, deadlines, and things like that.
So I have a couple questions. I was reading through the documents that were out there, and they stopped midway through. It's like really weird. So I don't know what's going on, but I liked what I was reading. I just had a few questions, and maybe they were answered further in that, but I just didn't get there.
So did you not get to, like, did you see the appendices?
No, I stopped on like page
So it might
12.
have been
Yeah, mine's
converting it
I just looked at it again to
Google
see if it was my
whatever,
computer, but-
the PDF, it could have, because it was originally created as a Google Doc, so maybe.
I tried
There's-
opening it a few different ways and.
There was a few missing pages in between, like not missing pages, because the information seemed to flow right, but there was like big blank chunks.
Yeah,
And
like
then all
every
of a
other
sudden it
page in
stopped.
mine, and I thought maybe it's because the way it was printed, it's, doing both sides, but then I couldn't get past like page 10 or 12 in either document.
Yeah, it says like this and then stopped.
Yeah,
Like what? So I was going to.
Oh, look at that.
it was page 11. We got to page 11.
So my
Every other
question.
page is blank.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
And
my
then it doesn't
questions
go
though.
past page 11.
Yeah, it just stops.
I only looked at the first, I looked, so I did this. I take ownership, I'm sorry. I looked at the first, the cover page and the first page. I assumed sometimes that first page is blank because it's the back of the cover. I went to the second page, it was there, mission and goals, I was like, okay, we're good. So, I wonder, did anybody try to download it?
I didn't.
No.
Okay.
But I've done both the PDF and the Google Docs regular document. It's the same thing either way. Mine are
Okay.
I actually made up a reason for it in my mind that I thought maybe those were to take notes or something because there were so many blank pages.
No, you're missing the really good parts, like all of
I'm
the.
looking at it on my phone, and it seems like it's 1,000 pages, and they're all full, so I don't know.
Yeah, there was like 50 pages, but
weird.
every other one, and then there was some that was like a half a page was blank, and the next page was blank, and then after that. But my question is though, are these mentors going to be assigned to the new teachers, or are they just kind of volunteer? Like how does that piece work? Like I saw your criteria, and to me it seemed sort of like a low bar. It was basically just you have to meet performance expectations and have been here a certain amount of time.
And they also have the mentor training.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 30 hours or something, right? 30 hours of,
For 30 to 40 hours in year one for the new teacher, but for the mentors, there are different options for the training. Some of them are like a one full day, or there's varying degrees of training for the mentors. But teachers would apply to be mentors, and then from that pool, we would assign the mentor.
you have,
Typically, you're looking at grade level, content, experience, all those things to try to find the right match.
I just wanted to make sure that there was still a mechanism in place for you, for somebody to make a decision whether or not that person should actually be mentoring. As much as they might want to, they might not really be ready yet, even if they took those classes and have been here long enough, they still might not be the right person to be a mentor right now.
Yes,
It's kinda
yes,
like-
so it would, in the end, it would be the principal's professional judgment. SE uses that a lot, but, yeah, to make sure that the assignment, and we also have a hold harmless clause that's built into it, so should we assign them and it doesn't work on one end or the other, they can reach out to us, and we really without, I'm not gonna say no questions asked, but with very few questions asked would make sure that we can find a better fit.
yeah, and I think to Mike's point, when you think of a mentor, you're also thinking of somebody who is training, if you will,
Yeah.
a new employee. So, you want your trainees to be trained by, I guess,
cream of the crop.
exactly.
And your model.
And using a somewhat rigorous selection process to make sure that that's happening.
And a lot of it too will depend, we will look at, potentially you could look at mentors' evaluations in terms of skills where they're proficient or exemplary in, that might be a specific area the mentee needs additional support. And like we said, I've never seen it like we wrote it, by building in the instructional leadership team, which not only will they have an individual mentor, but then there's a team of teachers at that building who will also be holding quarterly meetings, but also be available for any instructional support teachers might need. So really it's set up like it's an individual mentor, but there is certainly a team approach. We kind of really want to wrap our arms around the new teachers and make sure that it's not just that one person. I think in any situation, if you're relying on one person, you're probably setting yourself up for limited success.
Yeah, I just know that when I'm managing people, I have a new employee come on, and I'm having that person trained, I'm making sure that they get with the people I think are going to give them the best and most accurate information. And I just want to make sure that we were doing the same thing here.
Yes.
Okay.
And it is intended to be a 3-year process. The mentor gradually releases the mentee, right? So it's more time with them in year 1 than you might year 2. Then it becomes some group sessions with year 2 and year 3 teachers. So similar to Alyssa, who got her professional teaching status at the end of last year, the goal for teachers, or the focus is to make sure that they're rated proficient on all 4 standards at the end of year 3. trouble sleeping. Will help you. But I would say the definition of proficient and the indicators and elements, I argue and I say to teachers all the time, it exceeds what my definition of proficient would be. It's the title that they've given it, but there's a lot that goes into being a proficient educator. If you're looking at the 4 standards and 17 indicators and 33 elements, there's a lot that goes into it. So I think sometimes people hear proficient, and this is a conversation I have with teachers at the end of the year too. It's like proficient isn't like, oh, you're just average or above average. There's a lot that goes in. It's a pretty lofty standard.
And maybe they need to change the term, because proficient, look it up in the dictionary, and
Yes.
it's kind of hard not to come to that assumption.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. So they just did a rubric review. They released a new rubric in August 2018. It's convenient. It gets released in August before the school year. But they just released a new model teacher rubric, and that is not something that they changed. They changed some of the definition to what exemplary and proficient might be, but that's not.
Exemplary, the way you describe it almost sounds unrealistic,
It's
as
very-
opposed to
Yeah,
proficient.
Yeah, it's.
So that's actually really helpful, because I was also wondering if there's a way, and it sounds like there is, because you can watch the teachers, the new teachers as they're going through year after year and how they're progressing to make sure that that relationship is actually working, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah, and we look
if
for
need be,
feedback.
you can.
We look for feedback from both of them throughout, and the leadership team, administration is present throughout the process as well, getting information from both. What was the experience like? Because we want this, right? We have a document, but I think we consider it more of a live document, and if something's not working, we want to be able to adjust it so it works, and it should work for our teachers, not just so we have a document.
Is it, just a bit understanding, is it subject matter mentoring, or is it skills mentoring as well?
It's
that
not
we
required, but especially at the high school level, I think if we can match them up with another content teacher, but it becomes difficult in some of our one-offs, art and things like that. That might be one of those scenarios where junior high school teacher mentors an East Meadow teacher if it's an art teacher or something. So it's about what do we feel, what does the new teacher feel that they need? Is it in the content? Is it more about classroom management? Is it more about parent and family communication? Is it and trying to make sure that the mentor we're selecting for them meets their needs.
And is it, just again to clarify, does organic mentoring also happen? I mean, folks really naturally matching?
Absolutely. I think the staff in Granby that I've worked with does that very organically and very naturally, and they're very welcoming to colleagues, and I said that many times last year about just my own experience, but absolutely, they jump right in and, try to help people out, and whether it's figuring out how to set up your Google Classroom or use TeachPoint, which is the evaluation, or if it's just a start or end of class strategy, they're very willing to help each other out.
Yeah, I did see that at the parents' night over here. The third grade teachers, one of them was struggling with something, and another one just walked right over and made it all work. So it was actually kind of neat to watch.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen everywhere.
Cool. Any other questions? That's all we have for tonight, right? Do we have an executive session?
We do not.
Okay.
May I make a motion to meet here, because this chair is a lot more comfortable.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
I second that motion.
I'm much more comfortable
Is it
over
possible
here.
to move our meetings here?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for that.
For
That's
bringing
really,
that
really
up.
great.
Although
The
I do
chairs are
work
so
in
comfortable.
business online.
All right. I was actually enjoying the
Take your flowers.
All right, Leslie.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. So I guess that's it. Is there any items, I think we moved a number of items to our next meeting. Our takeaways are that we're gonna reach out to Chris and the select board to see whether or not we can get the information before the meeting. If not, whether we can be on their agenda to discuss.
So I guess I'm confused about next week, so, as of right now, we're planning on we'll be coming back here. Unless they can meet with us, or we might be doing both. I thought it was the joint meeting like we had, so that was like October 4th.
That's what I thought too, and Cheryl
Right.
told me that based on their conversations, they are not certain whether or not the full committee needs to be there just to approve the state updated budget.
Okay,
And if that's not required, we do not want to schedule time over there and interrupt our own meeting.
gotcha.
But by all means, if there's a need for us to be there, that's what we need to find out this week so that we can be, because we are still on that agenda. Whether we all go or one person goes, we are still on that agenda for that conversation. Okay,
Well, and if that's not the case, then we can make sure we're on the agenda for the roof conversation.
okay. Is that it? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? All right, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Aye, thank you, good night.